We all have these beliefs we hold really close, ideas that just feel solid, true. But what if we treated those ideas less like treasures to be protected and more like, say, a brand new bridge that needs to be pushed to its absolute breaking point before we trust it? Well, that's what we're going to talk about, applying that rigorous engineering mindset to the way we think. So let's think about this for a second. When engineers design something as critical as an airplane wing, how do they get to the point where they can confidently say, yep, this is safe, this will hold? I mean, they don't just stare at the blueprints and hope for the best, right? To get that confidence, they have to do something that sounds kind of backward.
That's right. They don't try to prove it works. They actively try to prove it doesn't. They put that wing through hell. Extreme temperatures, incredible forces, violent vibrations, all in a lab. And the goal is simple. Find the weakness. Because finding that breaking point in a controlled environment is exactly how you prevent a catastrophic failure out in the real world.
And here's the really cool part. We can apply this exact same logic to our beliefs. An airplane wing gets tested with physical force, right? Well, a belief gets tested with intellectual force, with tough questions, with challenging arguments. The engineer is looking for the physical breaking point. Our goal should be to hunt for the logical flaws in our own ideas.
Okay, so why go through all this trouble? Why attack your own ideas? Because genuine learning, genuine inquiry, it's not a one-and-done thing. It's a cycle, a constant back and forth of finding a potential answer and then immediately trying to poke holes in it.
See, it's not enough to just come up with a theory that feels right. A really strong thinker has to become their own biggest critic. They have to actively search for the counterarguments, hunt for those weak spots that could bring their whole idea crashing down. That's how you really test if a theory is any good. All right, so how do we actually do this? Let's get practical. Let's dive into one of the most powerful tools in this whole intellectual stress testing kit. It's called the counterexample method. A counterexample is like a little thought experiment, a specific scenario you cook up. It's like a precision-guided missile aimed right at a theory's weak point. When we try to define some big concept, like justice or knowledge, a counterexample is a clever what-if story that shows our definition is either too broad or maybe too narrow. And this is that cycle in action. First, you put a definition out there. Step 2, you or somebody else attacks it with a counterexample. If that attack works, you don't just give up. You go back to the drawing board, you refine your definition to fix that weakness, and then you start the whole process over again. And the key thing to remember is this isn't failure, this is progress.
So, just how powerful can this method be? Well, let me show you. Let's look at a case where a simple thought experiment managed to challenge a definition that had stood strong for over 2,000 years. Yeah, the stakes are about to get pretty high. Okay, so going all the way back to Plato, the standard definition of knowledge was pretty straightforward. To really know something, your belief had to be 3 things. It had to be justified, meaning you had good reasons for it. It had to be true, it matched reality. And of course, you actually had to believe it. Justified true belief, or JTB. Seems solid, right? What could possibly go wrong? Well then, in 1963, a philosopher named Edmund Gettier published this tiny 3-page paper that threw a giant wrench into the whole thing. He used the counterexample method to present what we now call a Gettier problem, and it changed everything. Let me walk you through one of the classic examples. So picture this. You're looking at a field and you see what looks exactly like a sheep. So you form the belief, there is a sheep in that field. Your belief is justified, right? Your eyes are giving you pretty good evidence. And let's say your belief also happens to be true. There is a real sheep in the field. But here's the twist. The thing you're actually looking at, it's a big, fluffy dog that just looks like a sheep. The real sheep is hidden from your view, just over a hill. So you have a justified true belief, but do you really know it? Most people would say no. You just got lucky. Philosophers call this epistemic. Just like that, Gettier's simple story broke that 2,000-year-old definition. It showed that just being justified and true wasn't always enough to count as knowledge. This completely shook up philosophy, and it sent everyone scrambling to figure out what that missing ingredient was. That is the power of a good stress test. And this whole idea of testing beliefs against opposing evidence isn't just some abstract thing for philosophers. It is a fundamental part of how we learn about the world, from science labs to just our everyday thinking. In science, they call this falsification. A good scientific theory is one you can actually try to prove false. In our own lives, we have something really similar called epistemic defeaters. It's like this. You believe your friend is at the library because she told you she was going.
But then you see a photo of her she just posted from the beach. That photo is a defeater. It's a new piece of evidence that undermines or defeats your original belief. The principle is exactly the same. Your ideas have to be able to stand up to contrary evidence. So the goal isn't to find beliefs that can never ever be challenged. The real goal is to hold beliefs that have been challenged, beliefs that have faced down potential problems, potential defeaters, and have survived. The strength of a belief isn't measured by how comfortable it makes us feel, but by how much serious scrutiny it has successfully passed. And all of this leads to what I think is the most important takeaway of all. It's a shift in focus, a shift from what we believe to how we believe it. It really comes down to this idea. In the long run, the method is more important than any single answer. Being a rational, curious thinker isn't about collecting a list of perfect, unchangeable facts. It's about committing to the best possible process for finding answers, a process of doubting, questioning, and stress testing everything, especially your own ideas. Ultimately, this approach kind of flips the script on the whole purpose of thinking. The goal is no longer to arrive at the destination called I am right and then build a fortress around that position. The real goal is a continuous journey of becoming less wrong over time. And that takes humility. It takes a willingness to let go of an idea no matter how much you love it if it fails the stress test. So I'll leave you with a question to take with you. Think about an idea you hold, something that's really core to how you see the world. What would happen if you stopped defending it for a day and instead started acting like an engineer trying to find its breaking point? What cherished belief of yours is ready for its stress test?